artistic director of Dash Arts and has also directed this production. And then our special parliamentary guest, John-Paul Cherrington. And John-Paul is an experienced political organizer himself, currently an advisor to a government minister, a speechwriter, and a recovering theater director, so we have all the possibilities there. And you've worked on lots of elections and by-elections, so I was fascinated by his responses tonight. There was a lot of rows of recognition. Okay, and we are also going to be joined in a moment by, introduce someone. Let's get started with some general questions about Dash Arts.
Perfect.
Okay, so Josephine, Dash Arts was founded in 2005, and I believe you wanted it to answer urgent questions. What does that mean, and how do you do that? How do you answer urgent questions?
Thank you, Terry. And can you hear me in this one? Is this one not on?
No,
Not really. I think this is the one that seems to have battery issues this evening on stage. So Dash Arts, we founded it in 2005, as Terry said. We are to ask the big questions of our time, to challenge the way we see the world, and to answer those questions with actors, called brilliant performers, like we've had this evening, with academics, with participants, some of whom I've just seen have walked in the back of the theatre who were on stage tonight, and audiences like yourselves, to really explore. And this particular project this evening comes from a journey of exploration, trying to explore who we are as a country, really post-Brexit, and that's the kind of origins of the show.
Yes, and I wonder if you could just expand on that a little bit more. I believe the ideas happened, as so many good ideas start, at Latitude Festival 6 months ago. Or no, 6 years ago rather, 6 years ago, so it's a long process to get to where we are today. And tell us a little bit more about what led you here, the workshops themselves, how they organized.
Hello.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, it's the open mic.
Ferguson O'Donnell and
Hello.
Kit is on.
Kit is just saying hi to his agent very quickly.
and Kit Esuruoso, is that what we're going to say?
Yes.
Kit Esuruoso is joining us about. Okay, so yes, tell us a little bit more, and then we'll get the other involved.
Yes. We, as I said, we were interested in thinking about Englishness. We had pulled together this fabulous, fun, playful script, which were all kind of speeches speaking truth to power. We were putting it on, as you say, all the best things happened at Latitude Festival, in a tent. And into this tent, as people are declaiming or claiming speeches with fake swords on soapboxes, walks an academic who is a professor of political science who knew about the speeches. We got on like a house on fire. We got him doing Cato and Catalan speeches on soapboxes. And then he said, we all have the ability to be articulate. It's not just the great Roman orators and the historians and the politicians. We can all do it. And I want to prove that. I've got this workshop program, and we thought, it would be really interesting to go around the country with him, meet a lot of people, help them to write and deliver speeches, and hear what they had to say about the country, what they thought we could do today that would make tomorrow better, and make a play from it. So this play is the fruits of an extraordinary, certainly a 3-year journey. And we met Alan a long time ago, but it's the fruits of a 3-year journey across the country, meeting and helping and supporting.
And then, and just to be clear, the people who were on stage with the actors in the second act, who are they and what are they doing?
They are, I'm just realizing so many more are sitting in the audience with us as well this evening. They are, hello. So we've been going around, we've worked with over 600 people, maybe 700-800 people in prisons, in community centres, in schools, in old age homes, working men's clubs across the country, helping them to write and deliver speeches. Some of them you heard tonight in songs on stage, but you also heard from this evening 2 wonderful people who have worked on that, with Helen and Lydia, who've helped work with us this evening, who worked with us to help to write and then deliver a speech. Over the course of the London run, you will hear up from others, but over the course of the country, over this show that's opened in Leeds and has been around the country, we've worked and shared stage with 50 of those speech makers across the run. So little tastes of ideas around not just ecocide and community combating loneliness, but also mental health support and special needs education social housing, and the list goes on.
Okay. Welcome, Kit.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you for
to see
being patient. I appreciate it.
We've heard about the play and the process to get here. I did want to tackle now, we've been joined by John-Paul, who has lots of experience himself working on elections and by-elections. And this incredible tension at the heart of the play, which is between, which your character, Kit, captures so well, about how do you make people heard, but also aware of things that are already happening, and is it admitting to people stuff. But first off, before I get each of your views on that, because you're coming at it, particularly from your characters, from very different perspectives, I just wanted to bring John-Paul in and to ask, first of all, what is your reaction having watched this play and the things that the characters are discussing on screen?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's really nice to be here. And it's like, I don't get enough politics in Westminster, so I come and get it in the evening. But fantastic, completely perfect. Also, just like to point out, this is what political advisors look like on stage. Kind of young, vibrant, good-looking, and this is what they're like in real life. knackered and old and grey. But I think it was a wonderful play. I really, really enjoyed it. There's so much going on. I really also particularly make credit to those two complicated political speeches that you delivered right in the heart of it to an audience. And I think the clarity of your thoughts, your argument, the fantastic impression of Modem, all those things were absolutely brilliant. So really well done. To have that on top of everything that's going on with the professional cast was really wonderful to see. And I think what the play's about, I think it's bringing them to a sense of what people think it's about, what people think MPs do, what people think politics is about, what people think it's like in Westminster, and what the reality of being an MP is, and the job of it, and kind of, it's always a compromise. It's always a compromise. And you watch it on TV, you watch it in the theatre, you kind of get passionate in the sixth form debates, and you kind of think just like the energy and the enthusiasm and the passion is good, and then somebody has to pay for it. And then if you take that, then it's coming away from somebody else, or which is more important, old people or children who are starving with school meals. And it's kind of, all of it's important, but it's, they say, I think politics is about priorities. And as soon as you choose a priority, you're not choosing something else. And I think that's absolutely kind of, without being really kind of obvious, bang on the head, that was really clear all the way through the play. I think it's brilliant writing. And because all the characters also do that in their relationships, is she choosing a mom over a boyfriend? Is she deciding to be in London because she can't bear to be back home, or does she come back? All these things. When you choose one thing, you're not choosing something else. And I think essentially that's what politics is about. It's kind of getting enough people to agree that this is perhaps important. And I think through both the characters' journeys and the engagement with political stuff, that was very truthful. And I found that really what made a great piece of theatre.
This is great. Okay, so I'd like to ask Kit and Fergus, tell us a little bit, having worked on the play and the people giving their own experience, has it changed your view of politics or politicians or being heard or not heard?
Hello, yeah, not really. I don't. Politicians, I mean, it's quite clear the two politicians that come from the Labour Party in the play, and Gabby's character Mary is obviously, like you say, is really empathetic and wants to be and hear people and listen and make the right choices for people, and I think your character Tom, like you say, is he's more logical approach, and it's like, well, within reason, because this is how politics works, and we can't just go, like you're saying, it's what you choose. It's like, we can't just say, oh yeah, of course you can have this, and we'll get free education, etc. Which is, I think, what a lot of politics does. Like, you look at the Reform manifesto, and the things that they're offering as solutions are just unachievable, it seems. But they're still putting them out there as like, oh, we'll put the tax, this, healthcare, and there'll be no waiting lists, and it just seems like ridiculous. So, just looking at the way that the politicians work and how what choices they have to make within that, it's beyond me how they fathom it. be honest. But it hasn't really changed how I perceive politicians. There was a song in the play at the beginning of the play that isn't no longer in it, and opened the play with a song that was all the same, and the lyrics were, "We all know they're all the same. Voting doesn't make the slightest difference." And then it went on to stuff like talk about how whatever you do, and that is kind of an attitude that people have, is that what's the point in voting because they're all insane. And I don't know if the play or within the writing that kind of dispels some of that or not. I'm not sure, but there is a general feeling that they are all the same. What do you think?
No, it's true. I think so. I'd probably say it didn't change anything for me in my political perspective. I think what's been really interesting, because we've been on tour with the show, it's been interesting seeing different parts of the country react to different parts of the play. Some parts of it, you guys found really funny, other parts of the country were like, that's not funny to us, and vice versa, right? So it's really always interesting for us to be like, what are they going to respond to this time? I think one thing that's really interesting that I think is really credit to the writing, shout out to Barney, is that even though they come from very different political perspectives, and it's very clear that they have an idea of, okay, well, if you think this, that's your character, right? And I think they do that with each other. And then, of course, in Act 2, Scott's character, he starts to open up and be more vulnerable, which allows Tom to see kind of the humanity in him. And that inspires Tom to open up because he's this official, logical politician. And I think one thing that's really beautiful about that is even when you come from different political sides, there is a humanity in all of us. And I think it would have been really easy for us to maintain this, oh, this person's the villain because they think like this, or this person's the villain because they think differently. But even though they don't even agree in the end, but by the end of it, they're kind of like, okay, we may have different perspectives, but I can respect you as a human being. Do you know what I mean? And I think what's really great is about having the space where people can still share how they're feeling, because, especially as we've traveled around the country with it, there were a lot of people who resonated with Tom's character and what he's expressing. There were a lot of people who resonated with Scott's character and what he's expressing. And so it's really interesting that we have to acknowledge that. And I think part of politics is being, okay, how can we all come together at the table? And then, because we all have to share this land together, we all share the community together, we're all here whether we like it or not, so how can we make the best of it? And so make sure we're not a country divided, so to speak.
I'm going to just say something, and then I know John-Paul wants to add to that, because if you haven't yet, I would really encourage you to download the program. There's a wonderful piece in it by Josephine, as well as the writer Barney Norris, who is fabulous. But something in that really struck me, and it resonates with what you just said, Josephine. You talk about that there are certain leaders, political leaders, who try to sell us on this narrative, this story of division in our country, the broken Britain, and that in these workshops, and it sounds like with touring the play, what we've discovered is that there is a lot more unity, community, and kindness than you expected to find, which is encouraging. So I'm going to give this to you, then go down to John-Paul, and then we'll come to the audience question.
Thank you. Thank you all, and thank you for those beautiful words, both of you. Yes, the answer is, when we ask people, what can we do today that will make tomorrow better, people are already feeling, and they're going to offer something that's about change and about hope. So maybe the premise is a bit more positive than it could be. We say this is not about what's gone wrong and who's to blame with it. It's about like things in all of our lives that would just make our lives better, but everyone's lives better. So we meet people in this sort of way of thinking about something, building something together, and that's definitely what we've tried to do with this pub. So to Kit's point, we really thought about the pub as a fictional country, and Albion, it's got something that holds the country together. And what happens in a pub is you might have a big row, you might fall out with your mate, you might get a bit drunk and say something that you'll regret, but you'll all go back again the next day and have a drink again and probably just about patch it up. And that's what we felt like we needed to be realising and thinking about as a country, in this country that feels or has a perception of feeling fractured. The people we've met are not like that, and that's what we hope. We hope that the hope will come from that, from the
Yeah, I think what I'd like to say is being able to violently disagree but not resort to violence, and then be able to kind of say, well, that's the election, you got more than me, so I've lost, and kind of admit defeat because that's the system and that's how we work it out, and then fight again for it next year or 4 years time or whatever. It's really, really important. The temptation with this kind of they're all the same, or what's the point of voting, or the kind of the cynicism of it, get detached from that system completely, means that people don't get represented. I think that's a real danger. And you're not going to agree all the time. You're not going to win elections all the time. I absolutely know that. Doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter how much work you put in. You can't win it. And sometimes the public surprises you, and you have to just accept that. But it's really important. I mean, I was thinking about this, that the first big by-election I was involved with was in London, and it was on the day that Joe Cox was killed. So some of you might remember back in 2016, which is just an anniversary, just 10 years ago, last week or week before. I'd met her a couple of times working in Yorkshire. I didn't know her well at all. But then I was working in London, and Sadiq had given up his seat in Tooting because he was going for the mayoral. He'd been elected as mayor, so it was this kind of like a chain of events. I worked on Sadiq's campaign, then I was helping Rosanna in Tooting on her campaign. And the referendum was kind of like looming a week later as well. It was a kind of weird time. And everyone was kind of working together, and it was like, it's pretty much going to be a Labour win before. And then suddenly we got the news about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon that she absolutely died. She definitely died. There was rumours and things going on. And just for the remaining 4 hours of the election, people just going around knocking on doors, and I was sat there entering data in silence. It was really strange. And her, the things on the you can see the placards of her in the House of Commons, is that we have more in common than that which divides us, which she was onto that 10 years ago, more. And that's kind of, that's really important to remember that, because the forces that were kind of fighting against that and saying, we are different, we're too different, we can't work it out. Those are, once you abandon that sense that we can communicate, and even if we disagree, I think we're on to, you see what happens then. If people don't follow the rules, then you get towards authoritarianism, dictatorships, the rule of law only applies to some people and not others. Then you start to get to a really difficult place that democracy is a terrible system of government, but it's just marginally better than any other. And we have to kind of accept that thing.
Sorry. Can you shout and I'll repeat the question?
I'll do my best. I love the dichotomies in the film. The production was fantastic. Thank you so much. And I think the two of you sat there, I think, are possibly the best examples of two characters that might really struggle to sit in a room and hear each other. And I'm wondering, from your perspectives, having inhabited these characters for as long as you have, and for the rest of the panel who've talked and been some political activists and sort of tried to reach people, is it always a dichotomy between listening to people and leading them, or is there some way where you might be able to hear someone has a very different perspective to you and change their mind without having to say that you agree with them? Is that something? Is there a language that might be able to come through?
Can you find a way of persuading people otherwise, not just agreeing to disagree? That's my very,
Much more out.
I think people only become receptive when they feel understood. So I think if you can disagree with someone, because I like to think everyone's goal is the same, is to get to a point where we live in a coherent society, that everything works well and everybody's treated fairly. We just have different ideas of how to get there. And a lot of the time, the different approaches of how to get there has to do with what someone's pain or suffering is, and everybody has different pain and suffering. So I think once people feel heard, and they go, look, I can understand why you feel that way. Have you thought about the ramifications of this approach? How do you feel about that? And you can only, I believe that I've seen, you can only really persuade someone by asking them the right questions that leads them to the conclusion you've already come to. But telling them why they're wrong doesn't work. they have to almost get to that conclusion themselves, and that takes a level of intellect, articulation, and intelligence to understand where they're coming from, why they believe that, and then you can ask the right questions. And that takes a lot of skill, but that's what I do, and how you persuade them.
Well, I didn't quite understand the question, but I think the gist maybe we were talking about the people being in the same room and conflict of ideas. And I feel that the character of Scott kind of enjoys, he's glad that he's got someone to vent it at, because he's coming from a place of fear and anger, and it's like, and he sees these people, these wokey-cokies as he calls them. So that's it's great. It's like he's in his element. These two are here, and there's no shyness about just getting straight into them and pressing buttons and wanting it to escalate. And that's really fun to play. It's really well written. The banter that he has, and the way he presses those buttons, and the way you see this character reacting, and then Mary's character trying to sort of dissipate it. So, I mean, yeah, that's really well written and really fun to play. But I think it is, like you were saying, it's like those arguments will turn violent if there isn't something to keep it on, keep the lid on it.
I just was just
Attention.
Just to sort of kind of follow through what both of your points have been. To say, when we've done these speech-making workshops, often we find a common ground. Like, it's often through play, drama, and silly games, and then people get this opportunity to write their truth and feel heard, and then share those words and listen to other people. So I guess I'm just following through on Kit's argument. But I had the speech that Kit's character Tom's son comes from a young man that we met in East Anglia about 2.5 years ago, and the words that felt so right and relevant for Tom's character are really spoken by someone else, and that really almost verbatim turned by our composer Jonathan to song. And I caught up with him about a year ago, 6 months ago, and I said to him, what came from that speech making workshop? Because I knew he'd left his job, we stayed in touch a bit, and I was thinking he'd say, I really, the rhetorical skills, the confidence that you gave me through that workshop helped me get a new job. But he didn't say that. He said, I remember that workshop. I remember there was somebody else in the workshop, and they made a speech about how sex workers can't open bank accounts. And I've never forgotten that. And it's just completely opened my eyes to something I never thought of before. And I just want to share that back to you, because I think once you're in a space where you feel comfortable and you feel heard, then maybe you feel more able to listen.
And I'm aware that we're probably running out of time, but are there other audience questions? I'm looking for hands. Yes, sir, what's your question?
Rather than Andy Burnham, a little bit of a vibe shift, so that he has such a British problem because it's not to the north. Something different to say.
Does Andy Burnham have something different to say?
That's the north.
Okay, so it's less about the personality, but do you think there's a north-south difference in how we speak and hear each other? Yes. That's a way to put it. I'm gonna John-Paul go first, and then I'm gonna be
Very, very careful. He'll be my boss's boss in like 2 weeks, so I must be careful with it. But I think it's an easy kind of like north-south divide to say that, and Burnham plays on it when you're in Manchester. It works really well. But there are lots of poor people in London. We could walk 100 yards and find, I've council estates where people are starving, where homeless people are. There's a lot of poverty in London. There's a huge amount of poverty in the south east as well. I'm from the Midlands, so everyone forgets about us completely. Because we're neither north or the south. So there is, I think, there's what Burnham's doing is communicating this clearly, but I think he has to be careful on when he's speaking to the whole nation and not just one city. Just as Sadiq is very proud of London and can say all sorts of things when he's talking about London, that other people think, well, London's where everything moves more fair. So it's difficult. You've got to some extent, play to your audience, and Andy Burnham's audience has just gone from 3 or 4 million to 70 million, in the space of 2 weeks. So I think there will be an adjustment on that. And he made some very encouraging sounds in his speech on Monday. I said that. Recorded. But But I think it's sometimes it's the vanity of small differences. It's like the rivalry. I don't know anything about football, so forgive me if I get it wrong. But you know, Spurs fans and Arsenal fans, yes, good. They're next to each other there, but they all prefer to, like when the London clubs beat Liverpool or Manchester, or you know, and United City, Liverpool, Everton, Glasgow. All these great cities have rivalry there. But apart from the club spots, we all enjoyed it when Germany got knocked out last night. Because it's like, you know, we'll have that kind of difference there, but then we'll kind of unite against that, and we kind of, you know, so we have a different identities in different levels, and some of the coming together is if you can find things in common. Whatever that is, which is like the Germans are out there, won't beat us on penalties again. That can bring people together in a way that kind of, if you insist that you only that Spurs are great and Arsenal aren't, or the other way around, you're going to divide people. So you've got to find that common ground, and ultimately that comes down to family and kind of having a home, some really basic, fundamental things about being a human being. And we easily forget that with this kind of vanity of small differences, which it's one identity is North and the South. There's poor people everywhere. It's rich people everywhere.
Yeah, I just want to flat out say Arsenal is better than Tottenham. What that on record. Yeah, is there a difference between North and South? Yeah, of course, but I think kind of said that there's different layers, you know, and once you get to a deeper layer, which is either when it comes to football in terms of the World Cup, or when it comes to, you know, a different country, or when it comes to different cities, like the deeper layer you go, the more people will unite, and the shallower you go, I'll say, then the more people can be divided because people have their tribes in that sense. It's really about appealing, I believe, to people's humanity. You know, the more you appeal to someone's humanity, then I think the more likely we are all to come to the table. So is there a kind of a rivalry between North and South? Yeah, sometimes it's healthy competition, sometimes it isn't. But at the end of the day, if we kind of just reiterate what you said, if finding those similarities, or similar goals, I should say, you know, we're all aligned in the same goal, then people are more likely to unite together.
I didn't quite hear the question because I was too busy trying to talk to my friends that were leaving. But if it was about North and South divides,
Yeah, I think it's more the answers to our problems lie in the North.
Yeah.
The North has something different to say to us.
Yeah.
the North has something different.
Does the North
Does it?
Yeah, well, I'm from the North, and when I go back up north, the thing I notice most straight away is how friendly everyone is.
That is true.
Like, the people are friendly down south too. I live in Brighton, it's really friendly, but it's just like so friendly, and that's something I just can't help observing every time I go back up north. It's like everyone goes out of their way to help you, and they're just so, people talk to you on the bus and they listen to you, and it's just like, that's something, just an observation, but that's something. Do you agree?
Yeah,
Kit
yeah.
agrees.
Northerners are way more friendly than people in London.
I don't have an answer for you, I mean, but you know, like much as anyone, but I was just going to jokingly say, of course, that like Mary comes from Warrington, Gabby comes from Warrington. We opened our show in Leeds, and it was in the previews that they announced the Makerfield election. And I really think that Andy Burnham probably sneaked into the back of the room in that week in previews, saw on stage this radical Northern Labour politician who wanted to do politics differently, so I could do it too. So that's all I can say about it.
Okay, Josephine, this production, this is the final stop of tour, finishes here on Saturday. What next for either our public house or Dash Arts?
Oh, well, our speech-making workshops are definitely carrying on. We have got the bulk, and we are continuing to go into schools and community centres around the country. So contact us through Dash Arts to find out more about how you can come and do a speech-making workshop or help us spread the word for them, because they're extraordinary, as we saw tonight from our participants. And Dash Arts, yeah, we had the show. We made a show last year from stories, testimonies from the war in Ukraine, and I'm delighted to say that the show, which we had last year at the Alcoa Theatre, is coming back next year. We're doing a UK tour, and we've been back in London in the spring. So that's the next stop for us, is to return. And unfortunately, the war in Ukraine is carrying on, and in time for the 50th anniversary of the war next year, we will be marking it again. But we are here until Saturday, so please do tell your friends to come and see us.
Yes, well, exactly, because you are all now champions of Dash Arts and our public house. I do want to just end with a
Just love each other more.
I think listen and agree to disagree sometimes. You know, not everyone has to agree with you. Still civil.
Find what you have in common.
That's with me, and I really got anything else to say. Yeah, I mean, I think echoing everything, listen to others, and just try and make time to have those moments of connection.
And mine is get a dog. Anyway, no, seriously. Thank you, everybody, for staying, and thank you to John-Paul and Kit and